Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission confirms it summoned the eldest son of former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad yesterday to assist in an ongoing investigation into his assets. It has also ordered Mirzan Mahathir to declare his local and foreign assets within 30 days. MACC said the order was a follow-up to a probe on the Panama Papers and Mirzan's business activities related to the sale and acquisition of a government-linked company. The anti-graft agency has been investigating the companies named in the Pandora and Panama Papers since 2022 and has so far summoned 10 witnesses. MACC said it was also in the process of reviewing the financial statements and asset ownership of the companies named in the reports. Three decades ago, scientists dismissed Antarctica as immune to extreme weather. But recent events, including record-breaking heat waves and soaring temperatures, have reshaped our understanding of this pressing issue. We speak to glaciologist Professor Martin Siegert to get a better understanding of how global warming alters the Antarctic continent and how this could lead to further irreversible events that will cost all of mankind.
30 years ago, when I started in glaciology, we really didn't consider Antarctica was going to be subject to extreme weather conditions. But what we've seen in just the last few years is firstly the largest ever heat wave recorded on Earth, so 38 degrees centigrade above what it normally should be. And that happened about 18 months ago. And just before then, we've had the highest temperature ever recorded on the Antarctic continent, and that was 18 degrees centigrade above zero. You know, that was melting. Unheard of 30 years ago. So what does that matter? Well, it's symptomatic of a warming world creating more extreme weather events everywhere on the planet, and Antarctica is the place where that sort of activity can take place. And what does that mean for us? Well, there are two important issues. One is that when Antarctica starts to change, at the moment it acts as a refrigerator for the planet. It keeps the whole planet cool. But once extreme events start to happen and that system is broken down, then Antarctica can start behaving not as a refrigerant, but it can start to amplify and increase global warming, and everyone will feel that. And the other reason it's important is because Antarctica contains so much ice. And that ice at the moment is stored on land on the vast continent. But as things start to change, there is a danger that that ice transfers into the ocean, either by flowing into the ocean or by melting. And once that happens, we get sea level rise. And that's another global phenomenon. So even though Malaysia is a long way away from the Antarctic, it will feel the effects of Antarctica changing as it starts to no longer cool the planet and as it starts to melt and form sea level rise, and we'll feel that everywhere.
In Singapore, Transport Minister S. Iswaran has been charged with 27 offences, including corruption and obtaining valuables as a public servant. The 61-year-old pleaded not guilty to the charges, almost all of which were linked to property tycoon Ong Beng Seng.
Iswaran resigned as Minister, MP and a member of the People's Action Party on Wednesday. He maintained his innocence and said he would focus on clearing his name. Iswaran is the first cabinet minister in Singapore to be charged with corruption and the first to be investigated since 1986. Among the charges, he was accused of receiving flights, hotel stays and tickets to events in exchange for advancing Ong's business interests. Ong was credited with bringing Formula One to Singapore in 2008. In 2022, his private firm, Singapore GP, and the Singapore Tourism Board secured the rights to host the Singapore Grand Prix until 2028. A pre-trial conference has been scheduled for March 1st.
Now, updates in Gaza. A shipment of medical supplies for the besieged enclave is being distributed as part of a deal brokered by Qatar and France. Since yesterday, at least 10 trucks with packages including supplies for depleted hospitals, as well as medicine for captives held in Gaza, were let in. Loaded trucks entered Gaza through the Rafah border crossing on Wednesday in the south of the Palestinian enclave. On Tuesday, Qatar announced it and France had brokered a deal between Israel and Hamas for medication and humanitarian aid to be delivered to civilians in Gaza in exchange for medication for 45 Israeli captives held by Hamas. It was reported that almost half of the 2.3 million Gaza population, or about 1 million people, are now in Rafah, where much of the population is in a humanitarian crisis with food, fuel, and medical supplies running low. Currently at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, a multitude of pressing global issues are taking center stage. Joining us from Davos is Niaga AWANI editor Najib Aruf, who will be shedding light on the spotlighted topics and discussions shaping the international agenda today.
All right, thank you, studio. This is the fourth day of World Economic Forum, WF 2024, right here in Davos, Switzerland. There's a lot of topics being discussed at the Congress Center, from artificial intelligence to some of the pressing issues of geopolitical tensions in regards to the war in Palestine. This is happening right now. We have the President of Israel talking about the war, and also some of other pressing issues and topics as well in regards to the environment and financial inclusion, of course, youth. And of course, the discussion is not just focusing or happening at the official venue, which is the Congress Center, but it's also happening along the line of promenade, where there's a lot of houses from corporate companies and also from other countries that's happening. And the discussion is very in-depth and touching a lot of youth issues. Joining me right now is our editor-in-chief, Astro, who attended one of the sessions at the Youth Majlis, which is under Mohammed bin Salman Youth Foundation this morning. How important it is to have this discussion, from the official discussion at the Congress Center and also at the promenade level, which is some sort of unofficial discussion.
Well, I guess it's pretty much everyone is anxious across the globe about the technology and how does that impacting the gaps that we are facing for the past, I think, about 2 decades.
Yeah.
By looking at the magnitude of the discussion, I guess it's important to see youth and leadership and how does that play a big role in terms of changing the course to rebuild trust among the youth. That is one of the key important elements in order for them to understand the intergenerational gaps that we've been facing. But at the same time, I guess what MACC is trying to do, or Mohammed bin Salman Youth Majlis, concentrating on how they can harness the potential to the fullest among the younger generations, not just in Saudi Arabia, but also across the globe, and to close the gap between the south and the north. And on top of that, by looking at the different understanding and different worldview and behavior as well, not just from leadership perspective as well as organizational, from corporate perspective as well as government perspective. And on top of that, another challenge that they have to face is adapting to AI. So this is interesting to see why the discussion happened throughout 3 days, in which I guess we put up a clear indication when we talk about from the lens of Southeast Asia, Malaysia in particular. Yeah.
And of course, one of the main focus, like you mentioned just now, is about artificial intelligence. It has been discussed extensively right here in World Economic Forum in Davos. And in today, World Economic Forum's AI Governance Alliance basically says a global effort is needed to create equitable access to artificial intelligence, especially from the global south area. And you attended one of the sessions which Sam Altman, the OpenAI CEO, attended. And
the creator of ChatGPT.
Yeah, and this is very heated discussion, I would say. Could you just share some of the insights from
Well, I guess the takeaway point from that session is not just him alone together with another 4. Coming from even drug discovery and how do they marry these two worlds together, AI and drug discovery. On top of that is, I think, first, no one knows what's going to happen. But according to Sam Altman, as closer they took the step towards stronger AI, I guess everyone is getting more and more anxious. One second is about be ready and be resilient of a lot more strange things happen as the impact to the technological advancements with regards to artificial intelligence. In this case, is generative artificial intelligence. We have seen and we have experienced artificial intelligence in many forms in our daily lives. But generative artificial intelligence and the rapid growth for the past 2 years, and no one knows what's coming in the next couple of years. But in this case, I think from security perspective, cyber security, the preparation and also understanding how this can actually contribute to the common good at the international level as well as a local level. And this is another point that he stressed on that, because I think it's quite fragmented when it comes to how do people perceive AI. Some just take a look at the whole growth of technology before this. Everyone was anxious, but at the end of the day, people adapt to it. And after when the adoption, when we have witnessed the adoption happen rapidly, then everyone's is okay, right? But in this case, as we move closer to stronger AI, I think everyone has this understanding. They don't want to repeat the whole history of Hiroshima again. And I think this is what's crucial in this discussion, that to create a proper standard and to create a proper framework, whether it has to be regulated or otherwise, well, it depends on the discussion and debate at the leadership level and societal level. But on top of that, people have this common understanding that it should not replace human capabilities. Instead, it helps to enhance product. It enhance the human capacity as well. So that is one of the key takeaway points from that discussion, in which it's quite interesting to see how Sam is trying to bring it 2 notches down and make it, everyone
acceptable
understand,
today.
acceptable and digestible as well. See,
it's very interesting because I remember the Accenture CEO also mentioned about policymakers in regards to AI, where she said that basically policymakers, if they don't understand AI, they tend to regulate it. But we have some of snippets from the Sam Altman's session just now. Let's listen to it.
The technological direction that we've been trying to push it in is one that we think we can make safe, and that includes a lot of things. It's we believe in iterative deployment, so we put this technology out into the world along the way, so people get used to it, so we have time as a society, our institutions have time to have these discussions, figure out how to regulate this, how to put some guardrails in place.
Can you technically kind of put guardrails in, write a kind of constitution for an AI system? Would that work?
If you look at the progress from GPT-3 to GPT-4 about how well it can align itself to a set of values, we've made massive progress there. Now, there's a harder question than the technical one, which is who gets to decide what those values are, and what the defaults are, what the bounds are, how does it work in this country versus that country, what am I allowed to do with it versus not. So that's a big societal question, one of the biggest. But from the technological approach, I think there's room for optimism, although the alignment techniques we have now, I don't think will scale all the way to much more powerful systems. We're going to need to invent new things. So I think it's good that people are afraid of the downsides of this technology. I think it's good that we're talking about it. I think it's good that we and others are being held to a high standard.
And of course, that particular discussion will be aired on Astro AWANI sometime this week or next week. And of course, World Economic Forum will be closing its doors tomorrow on Friday here in Davos. But for Astro AWANI, we'll be carrying this discussion and also some of the snippets from the discussion up to until next week, especially on Niaga AWANI. And of course, this is very crucial for audience, especially in Malaysia, to take a look at World Economic Forums and the discussion from World Economic Forums itself.
All right, I think that's it. Please follow us on across all our social media platforms. as well as astroawani.com. I'm Ashrat Ismail.
And Najib Arif.
Yeah, signing off. Thank you.
Now that special report from World Economic Forum in Davos ends AWANI Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Saraya Mia, and we'll see you again.